What's going on, guys? Appreciate you joining me here on the Civilian Mindset channel. Today's episode is about my personal home defense weapon, which everything that I built is personally mine, but this is kind of one of my more proud builds. The reason why is because this is the one that I choose to defend my home with. You guys have seen my 10-3s, and I've changed the optics on my 10-3s to the Romeo and Juliets. I actually swapped the optics that were on my AK-47s and swapped those out and used the Romeo 7s on my AK-47s and used the Romeo and Juliets on my 10-3s. So you guys will see those coming shortly. I did that because, to be honest with you, I don't plan on shooting long distance with my AKs. So I just took more of a red dot approach on those instead of having a magnification ability. So I swapped those out, and I'm happy about them. So I will be breaking those out one day sooner than later, maybe next week. I don't know. Probably this week coming up, maybe. I really don't know. I was kind of going to just bring this out on Saturday when I go shooting. I practice the Sabbath on Saturdays. So Saturday is pretty much the day I go shooting all the time. So usually people say Sunday fun day or Sunday gun day, whatever the expression is. For me, it's a Saturday. So when I go out and I shoot this Saturday, I'm definitely taking this out to show you guys how I utilize this rifle, which for the most part I point shoot with this. I use more so the barrel and the suppressor as a point of reference over the optic. So I kind of rarely use the optic. The optic is for daytime and further distance shooting, but for the most part I don't use the optic. And what I do is I use more of a point of reference style of firing with this weapon. And the reason why is because in my home there's probably not going to be stop I said go there's probably not going to be a whole lot of long distance shooting from my kitchen to my front door. You know what I mean? So I want to visualize and be able to see everything in my path. So if I do this, the doorway might be kind of harder to see than not. So if I just use this, which I'm right directly on the phone itself. Imagine that's a person in the threshold of a door. I'm pointing right directly center at you right now. I'm at the camera right now. This is the phone. This is the camera. Just very small, minuscule little increments, movements that would, be able to hit my target, right? So if that being said, I don't really need an optic for my home. I choose to have one on there. I'm actually going to switch this. I'm going to get the Primary Arms SLX or something. It's like the aim point knockoff. I'm going to get that for it just because it looks cool. I'm going to put this on one of my other builds. And, that's about it. I just like the aim point styled look. I don't like their price point because, not for nothing, I just feel like, one, this doesn't need much of an optic. I'm really only doing it for the looks of it. And when it comes to optics, I beat them to shit. I really, truly do. So if it's a cheaper budget build optic, but it works just as good as another, EOTech or $500+ optic, I'm not going to waste the money. A lot of people will talk crap on it, but when you pull that rifle out and you're by the end of a class and you're smoking guys and dudes are using all this real cool, tactical stuff, but yet you used something that was super budget build, but you had a hell of a good trigger on here. You have a hell of a BCG. You have really good internals when it comes to the weapon itself. And you smoke them because they really don't know how to use their cool guy gear. well then I guess that optic did absolutely nothing for you in the fight. So now don't get me wrong, optics are your weapon's lifeline when it comes to a real fight. So a real weapon for, you know, a gunfight, like a battle, you should have at least a $200 to $500 optic on there, or use some Sig Sauer stuff. Sig has really cheap optics for a really good bargain for what you get. You get durability, you get strength, you get visibility, the glass is clean, stuff like that on the Romeos and stuff like that. So there's nothing wrong with getting a good budget optic. Nothing wrong with it. This is a primary arms optic on my CQB rifle here, my home defense. And I like primary arm stuff. I do. I like primary arms, EOTechs. Let me see. What else do I have at home? SIGs, which is like the Romeo 7 and the Romeo, Romeo and Juliet. I love those. I think that's... Oh, and Holosun. Holosun's amazing. For the price point, you cannot beat them. So, same thing, right? So, Holosuns, primary arms, there's some other builds out there that are just not worth putting $1,000 optics on. This is one of them. So don't get me wrong. Again, this is what protects my home. So what I put thousands of dollars in would be technically the internals, because I want this thing to work without fail. Do I use the optic much? No, I don't. So that being said, what's the point of me getting an optic when, for the most part, I'm going to be shooting like this? And now, a lot of people, there's been a big discussion on shoulder placement on rifles right now. I don't see why people are even having this discussion, but whatever, it's an industry thing. People are saying that you shouldn't put your face up here on the cheek, the brace on the cheek and fire, which I would agree. You should put it on your shoulder and have at least 2 points of contact, one on the shoulder, one on your face. I firmly stand by that. So a lot of people would say, oh, you know, armor gets in the way. Really doesn't. So, and if it does, how about you get an armor that has a very flat strap on here in order to mitigate any issues that you might have. I have one. My straps are pretty thick here, and then they stop. There's like a big gap in here so that I can just hug my shoulder into my rifle, and I can just pull that thing in, and there's no issues. I will be discussing what's in and out on this thing, but it's just weird to me to hear so many things going on with this industry right now, with just kind of like proper techniques and stuff, right? So a lot of people say whatever works for you works. That's true in most cases, but not in all. And I would say when it comes to having as many points of contact on your rifle, that should be like the main priority, other than the internals and what's on here and what's in here. So anyway, that being said, let's get to the nuts and bolts of this. SB Tactical Brace, Radian Raptor SD charging handle, which is made pretty much specifically for cans. I have a Fail Zero BCG. I have Strike Industries internals, pins and all that stuff. Strike Industries, selector switch, everything. Excuse me. Geisley trigger in here. So, no joke, Geisley is expensive. All right, it is what it is. The Fail Zero, expensive. It is what it is. not for nothing, but what you get what you pay for, right? When it comes to these things, you get what you pay for. So you don't want to cheap out on the real aspect of your rifle, which is internals, making it work, firing correctly, everything cycling through correctly, nothing going wrong with your rifle. And then after that, you can cheap out on some stuff here and there, like get Magpul furniture. That's cheap. Magpul, again, cheap. Behemox mags, or whatever the hell these are called, cheap. The upper and lower receiver, around 200 each, like 150 on the lower and 180 on the upper. That to me is relatively cheap for building a weapon, a whole firearm. The buffer tube, I think, was like $60. The buffer tube also came with the spring and the weight. Make sure you get the right weight for your weapon, because a lot of times people don't know and they go around and they get the wrong ones. Let me see if I can open it up without busting my finger open. So you want to see this. It's clearish, whitish, if you will. Make sure you get a pistol, pistol buffer tube and a pistol buffer spring, because if not, that also won't work for your weapon. I've done it where I've gotten longer stuff and, just things aren't timing right, things are just not working, then all of a sudden you're getting jams. You wonder why. It's honestly something so stupid as the buffer tube, buffer spring are just not long enough or short enough, and the rounds just not able to feed correctly. Let me see what else. That's kind of it. And then you got, your Dead Air Sandman S suppressor. Midwest Industries handguard, which, guys, just to let you know, I absolutely hate this angled foregrip. But on this configuration, this setup, such a small weapon, I absolutely love this setup. So the reason why I hate it is because I C-clamp, right? So C-clamping is basically you grab your rifle, you completely C with it. It looks like a C from right here. You C-clamp this weapon from top to bottom. Your whole hand pretty much wraps around the barrel. I do that mostly, and I don't, even if I have the option to use a vertical grip, I don't like them. I use angled foregrips. Since I C-clamp, I don't need all that extra meat. There's no need for me to have something hanging down here, and I don't utilize any of it anyway. And I'm using 3/4 of this thing is hanging down. It's just more weight on the front of the weapon that I don't need. So this configuration, I have it set up this way so that my hands don't burn with such a small set of handguards, small barrel. And yes, this adds length, but not to the barrel. It only adds length to the weapon itself. So the barrel is still this long, this big. It's really tiny. You know what I mean? So it's from here to here. It's a small 7-inch barrel. That being said, a 7-inch barrel plus another 7 inches on the can itself, you're getting about 14 here, but it's really not the case, right? So those of us who shoot suppressors know that this is not a long distance weapon. This is simply a home defense weapon where I'm shooting maybe from here to the door, absolutely, and maybe if I were to come into this threshold, I'd come into my room. Sorry, Cooper. I'd come into the room and check. This is about as far as I want to ideally use this weapon. And the reason why is because if I go 50, 200, 400 yards with this thing, I'm not going to be as proficient with it from 200 yards and up. So 50 to 200, I'm going to do damage. I'm going to do really well. 200 and 400 to 600, I am not doing well at all with this weapon. I mean, I may, but I haven't tested out that theory when it comes to 200 yards. I'll take this out to 100 yards, and see what it's like. But again, with the style of fighting that I plan on using with this weapon, I don't plan on using the optic itself, right? So if I'm in here, this is how I'm using this weapon. It's shouldered at a cant. I'm going to drive the weapon the way I need to, but using the barrel as a point of reference, right? So if I had to take a more controlled shot, an absolutely, you know, critical moment, then absolutely sure, I'm going to go here and then check that and make sure that my threshold to my, my barrel and my optic, what do you call that? Offset. All right. So my barrel and my optic offset, or my iron offsets, are practiced and utilized, so that this way, if I do have to make a critical shot and I go from that to this, I'll know exactly what to hit and how far this is going to make a big difference. But if I'm in such a close range, more than likely I'm going to use still this right. Yep, exactly. So this point of aim, because of the fact that it is super accurate as is. So what I'm going to do is, when I take this out, I'm going to use point shooting. I'll even shoot at the head, just so that you guys can see how it is when you are simply using the barrel as a point of reference. So I'll start at the body and rise up to the chest, to the heart, and then rise up to the head, and without using the optic itself. You should always have an optic, no doubt. Again, I'm not saying don't get an optic ever. Please don't mistake that, right? But when it comes to such close quarters like this and all this right here, like, guys, not for nothing, this is maybe 40 feet, 30 feet, 20 feet. You don't need to use that when it comes to this weapon. There's no need for me to be using my optic and keeping everything this tight and this close. I'd rather keep it open, where everything's tight and close on the rifle itself. Everything's got a point of contact. There's nothing going, look, there's nothing going to shimmy out of my shoulder. Everything's still touching meat, holding on to meat, and I have my face on the brace or stock, depending on what rifle you have, and I can use this solely as a point of reference, and I'm going to hit maybe 80% of exactly what I want. So say there's a circle, I'm aiming for that circle, like, you know, a melon size or a apple size. If I shoot at an apple, I might miss it, right? But how many people's faces are the size of an apple, right? So if you're shooting at an apple being this big, you probably covered everything else you needed to hit. So you're hitting an apple, 80% of that apple, you're going to figure, you figure you're going to hit anywhere within that small apple. So if I'm hitting here, more than likely I got here, 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 here. It doesn't matter. You covered 80% of that apple with your barrel or your compensator or your suppressor, depending on whatever you have. I don't know what you guys might have, right? But I'm covering it right now. 80% of this entire my phone, all right, is covered, right? So if I'm using 80% of that, but I'm still keeping an eye on my target, more than likely when I fire, the threshold here says I'm gonna hit. That means I'm gonna explode my phone. That means right here I'm gonna explode my phone, and I'm covering 80% from this section, right? So it's covering. This is the top of what I'm seeing, and the rest is being covered. My phone's pretty much covered except for the lens. The eye lens on the camera is right here. So more than likely, I'm gonna blow out the phone. You gotta check your thresholds, and stuff like that, and your bore over sight or sight over bore contrast. You got to train for that stuff. Also, again, train for point shooting. Anyway, so like I said, I told you guys what was in here. I'm gonna tell you also what's not on here. You will not see a weapon mounted light, no WMLs, and there's a reason for that. So when it comes to a WML, you can't see shit after 5 seconds, right? So for 5 seconds. So if you use 50 to 500 or 1,000 looms, 800 looms, whatever you got on your battle rifle, cool, that's cool. But when you lose sight for 5 seconds, that's not cool. You want to know that you can shuffle, you can move, you can keep the eye on your target. You don't want to hit that button and you have them, and then all of a sudden you see one of his friends comes and now is looking at you because he's going to shoot you. You're going to either have to now make a move on this guy, probably put him down, turn off the light, and now go at that threat. And that threat has already got you in his sights. You've made yourself known that you have a light on. So if he ever shoots at the light, he's probably going to hit you. You know what I mean? Like, for instance, I have a light on here, right? This is my everyday carry, 6 Sauer 365 Spectre Comp. I love this thing, but I would never turn on this light, ever. This is strictly for like a parking lot or something like that. So if I was to do that, it would be because I had absolutely no option to turn that light on or I had no other option but to turn that light on. So that's the kind of thing you got to think about. This is my home defense weapon. This isn't a battle rifle. This isn't something you go out and you take over the world with this thing. This ain't it. This definitely is far from it. I would use this thing solely for a close quarter battle situation. I used to have only the internals on the upper, and that was it. Didn't even have an optic on here. I had the Scalar Works. Oh, that's another thing. These are Scalar Works iron sights, by the way. I had the Scalar Works iron sights on it, and that was it. So that this way I could use this as a battle rifle indoors. This was a CQB upper, dedicated simply for this this can, to put it in a backpack, have my 10-3, and if I needed to go secure a building, I would swap outside, as you know, as cover would have it, or you know, say God willing, if I had friends, they got my back. As they're watching my 6, I can swap out the upper, put that one in my backpack so it's not in the way, and go to town with this thing. You know what I mean? So again, this would have been, and it would have had a light on, but then I swapped everything. I'm a big fan of 10-3s. So now I use the 10-3 dedicated for all that other crap. But this right here, simply now my home defense weapon. I don't need a light because I know the lay of the land. The suppressor is going to mitigate most, and if not all, of my muzzle flash. And I'm going to keep this pretty much as slick as possible, so nothing gets caught, nothing is in the way, and I don't mistakenly or bump into something where it makes the flash go off and you can see it 3 rooms down, and now my cover is completely blown. When the suppressor is it loud? Yeah, it's, dude, not for nothing, this is not a quiet gun. Doesn't matter if I got a suppressor on it or not, this shit is loud. All right, loud. But I am not going to violently wake up my children with this thing. My children are going to be more than likely have been woken up by the sound of my dogs chewing on somebody's leg. That would more than likely be the case. One's going to grab an arm, one's going to grab a leg, and I'm going to come down, or who knows, maybe I'm in the basement, or maybe I'm in the garage. I don't know, and trust me, this thing goes everywhere with me. I will eventually see them on the ground, and if they're in, if they're in trouble, I'm gonna let them continue to get bit and eaten. I'm not gonna lie, shouldn't have been there. But if they somehow get broke free, boom, 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 they're done. I'm going at them. I don't care if they're on the ground or not. They shouldn't have been in my home. So if that person has a gun, a knife, or something, they're going to have a pretty bad day because I'm putting them right down. If they don't have anything in those hands, they're just going to keep getting bit by my dogs until the police get there. So if my dogs, somehow grab a neck, I'm not stopping it. You know what I mean? Like, that's their job. They're doing their job. So my dogs, they're great here. They're amazing here. But when they go home, they're different, man. They got my kids there. And my kids, I've seen the pizza man almost take a dump in his pants because my little guy, just my little guy, was ready to eat them alive. But, well, him. But anyway, that's the thing. Like, if you guys don't have security, also, please get a dog or 2 dogs if you can. If you can't and you live in an apartment setting, I get it. You know what I mean? Just get an alarm system and get one of these. And, God willing, God will be on your side at that moment. And he'll help you win that fight. But, yeah, so anyway, enough of that. This is, again, my home defense weapon. So SB Tactical, regular buffer tube, Radian Raptor SD charging handle, Scalar Works, iron sights, primary arms, optic, Geisley trigger, Strike Industries internals on the lower, and in the upper, the Fail Zero BCG. Then you got Midwest Industries handguards. Sadly, I forget what barrel I went and got. My friend, a good friend of mine, love you, bro, if you're watching. A good friend of mine helps me build these at times. Like, I can't do barrel and handguard work because I don't have the mounts for it, right? So he does pretty much this stuff. And this was another friend. Thank you, brother. You know who you are. I can't really say you guys' names. I would love to, but you know how that goes. Another friend put this on for me, and I love him to death. Dude's awesome. Kind of got a man crush on him. Dude is the man. I can't even tell you how awesome this guy is. Trainer, been to, combat kind of guy. Let's put it that. I don't want to get into too much because it would kind of tell you who he is, and especially in the local area. But this dude is the man, right? He's going to, God willing, do some firearm shooting with me. Sadly, I probably won't be able to record that, but if I can, I'm definitely putting that up. Dude, help me with this on 3 of my rifles, soon to be 4 because I'm getting a 308 also. And then, anyway, this is a BKF, B King's firearm. I have no idea what that is. That's just a lower, and it's probably the upper 2 because I don't remember it being bought differently. I think they were both bought into the same place, same time. So it would be the upper and lower from that same firearms company. And Magpul Furniture, and this thing is done. So if you guys like what you see, if you have any questions, like I said, I just told you pretty much everything up and down this rifle and what is inside it, what is on it, what is not on it, what it's used for, how it's used, and in what situations this is probably only going to be needed. Like, again, 50 to 200 yards max. So if you don't plan on being in a fight outside of 200 yards, say you're in the city and you don't need a 500-yard type of rifle, 10-3, 600 yards, at stretching it, and 500 yards at its most, predominantly good 90% kind of hit shot, right? So let's say 80 depending on the shooter, right? But that being said, this rifle right here, 200 yards probably max, and that's with the optic. Without the optic, maybe 20 yards, 15 if you're a good shooter, like without, and when I'm saying without optic, it's just point shooting. If you're using the optic, you can easily get to 200 yards with this thing, maybe more. Maybe I'm downplaying this thing, but for me, I'm not going to try any further than about 100 yards. So if I can get 100 yards, I know for a fact I can get 2. But anyway, that's it for this. So if you guys find value in this post, and if you find value in this channel, like, share, subscribe. I truly appreciate you guys. And also you guys who are out there who are new to the channel, I'm seeing you guys subscribe daily. I cannot thank you guys enough. I truly appreciate it. Seeing from almost 0 subscribers to 90 in under a month, that is awesome. That speaks volumes to me. Other people would say that's nothing. To me, that's something. So I truly appreciate you guys. I can't thank you enough. I had this post posted yesterday, and I just didn't feel like it was right. So I deleted that one, and this is going to be the one that I'm going with. But anyway, again, guys, I truly appreciate you. I love you. Get out there, train, be safe. Peace.